Hey guys, I'm back again, and today is Vlogmas day 4, and I'm here to do my November wrap up. So, November was full of a lot of stuff going on. I had a lot of work. I did a buddy read, and I also had my read for my book club, which subsequently had to be discussed just on Sunday yesterday because I had to push it back because I had caught COVID. So here we have it. This is what I read in the month of November. Not very many things, but I think interesting things. So let's start with fiction. So I read Anne Patchett's Bel Canto. And this one I read specifically for my book club here in Normandy. So this is not the first Anne Patchett I've read. This is the second one. The first one I read was called The Dutch House, which I read the year of the pandemic, if I'm not mistaken. Which I thought was, yeah, it was 3 stars. It was good, but it didn't bring me out to Nirvana or anything, and I didn't go down to hell or anything, but it was good. And this one, Bel Canto, I feel like it falls in the same category. For me personally, it was just good. Now, this is a story that revolves around a hostage taking inside of an embassy that's somewhere in South America. And this embassy is throwing a lavish party for this businessman from Japan. And this businessman from Japan has a love of opera like you can't even believe. And he also has a lot of love for a particular opera singer. So that opera singer has been invited, to celebrate this businessman's birthday party. And the president is supposed to attend this event. So the people at this embassy party are then held hostage. And from there, the story develops. Now, okay, I feel like to read this book, you have to dispel belief. So this story was based on a real hostage taking that happened I think it was in Peru. And it lasted, I think they were in the thing for months. It was a really long time. This one, I think they're in there for, if I can remember, it's like for maybe like a month or something. And the thing about the book is that it doesn't really depict a realistic view of what you would find inside of this kind of cloistered event. So we have all of these highfalutin rich people or people of power at this embassy. And then they get taken over by a terrorist group that is there trying to kidnap the president to further their desires or whatever they're looking for. But as the president isn't there, they wind up, it's a hostage situation. So you know how it is in a hostage situation. You have all kinds of people. You have people that are just going to be, they'll just do anything and, they'll keep their head down. You'll have other people who will try to get in with the hostage takers because, they want to get more out of it. There's a lot of different people doing different things. Whereas in this one, it seemed like it was very close to Disneyland to a certain extent, where everybody was just cooperating, and then before you know it, they're making chickens and all kinds of fancy things they're doing. The hostage takers and the hostages are making a meal together, and it's almost at the limit of I don't really believe this completely, but okay, if you want. And you keep reading. So I read this, and this book, I can tell you one thing about this book is there is not much dialogue in this book. It doesn't matter where you turn the page. It's solid text. I'm just turning randomly. Solid text everywhere I turn. This book is much longer. It feels much longer than it really is. The book is coming in at 318 pages, but it felt like it was 500 for me because with each section, you learn about, the different people that are inside of this embassy, and, what is their background, and a little bit about, what they do and that kind of thing. And then they kind of like then she kind of like puts everyone together and in this hostage situation, and they, then we see how they react to, the other people. But everybody pretty much falls in line, and they wind up, like I said, cooking together and doing stuff together. And at the end of this book was the most shocking for me, because when I read the ending, I thought, wait, did I miss something? Did I not read something correctly? The ending of this book makes no sense whatsoever. None. Zippo. Hey, I don't know. I think I gave it a 2 or 3. I can't remember, something around there. I just was a little bit nonplussed about it. I think I gave it a 3. I was a little bit nonplussed about it. I would never really recommend this one. I feel like this is the kind of book where you're going to have 50% of the people are going to love it, and the other 50% of the people are going to hate it. I see what Ann Patchett is trying to do. She's trying to show how people can make connections in situations like this. But nah, I mean, I wasn't here for it. After a while, it even felt slightly preachy, and it was a little weird for me. So yeah, so that was the first book that I read. The second book I read was this one, which is First Class, The Legacy of Dunbar, America's First Black Public High School. Now, this book was a nonfiction that I buddy read with my friend Patrice Jones, and we both enjoyed this book to a certain extent. Yeah, we fairly much enjoyed this book. It's not a very long book, but look how many tabs that I have, because I learned a lot of things about Dunbar. Now, the school itself is located in Washington, D.C., and it was a school that was specifically created for black students, because they weren't accepting black students to study with white students. Now, this Dunbar school in the beginning was very well known because all of the people that taught there, they had a specific way of going about teaching, and that rendered good results from the school. So in a lot of cases, the black students were doing better than the white students at this particular school. Now, there were people who didn't really like that. So, of course, with time, this school was penalized by not getting enough funding from the government. So, whereas they would give the school down the road, the white high school down the road would get like $2 million or $1.5 million, they would only give Dunbar $500,000. And with time, the school, it morphs and changes. So Allison Stewart, her parents actually attended Dunbar, and there's a picture of her parents in here, which I thought was kind of cool. But what she does, Allison Stewart, is she basically covers the beginning of Dunbar all the way until like modern day today Dunbar. So we see how much the school has changed. So it becomes very critical when they decide to revamp the old building and make it into a new building, and they wanted to make it into a environmentally friendly building. And in doing so, they made the school look like a state penitentiary. So that didn't go down too well because it didn't have any windows. And then from there, we go on with all the various different people that attended Dunbar. So that's how she starts it. She starts talking about the different people that attended Dunbar or that taught at Dunbar. And it continues like that all the way to the modern day Dunbar. But one of the things that was interesting is how many different people that attended Dunbar have done fantastic things and gone far. So like are either high up in the military or in government or in business or in sports. It's pretty fascinating. The modern day Dunbar has suffered a lot because the school is much bigger than it was in the beginning. And they had a lot of issues with violence and trying to get teachers who could actually turn this school around so that it would be close to what it was before. And so that's what's really interesting about following the development of the school called Lawrence Dunbar. So I highly recommend it. I think it's really interesting. And, you know, because when you read nonfiction, you're always thinking, am I going to learn anything? Is this really worth it? And I mean, I've had this book on my shelf, I think now for about 5 or 6 years. But I think I'm so glad I finally got to it. It is interesting, and I did learn quite a bit. So yeah, so that was the second book that I read. Now, the third book I read was this one, which is The Yellow House by Sarah M. Broom. So this one we read in my Read So Lit book club on Patreon. This one, I personally connected with this book in probably a little bit different than some people in the book club connected with it. I didn't particularly enjoy Sarah M. Broom's writing in the first half of the book. It really felt like a lot of he said, she said, they went there, they did this. It didn't have a lot of literary feeling to it. It didn't start to be a bit more literary until we got midway in to the end. There were some interesting quotes all the way through the book, and that I appreciated. As you can see, I do have some tabs, but this is an interesting memoir which covers Sarah M. Broom, her family's yellow house that was located in New Orleans East, and how they grew up in that house. Now, keep in mind, Sarah M. Broom is the youngest member of the family of 12 kids. And so this was the excuse that somebody said in the book club. Yeah, but she was the youngest, you know. Because in the beginning of the story, when she's talking to her brother and she's trying to convince her brother of why she wants to write this book. And so I'm going to read you a little bit of what is said. So it says, when I call my eldest brother Simon at his home in North Carolina to explain all the things I want to know and why, he expresses worry that by writing this all down here, I will disrupt, unravel, and tear down everything the Broom family has ever built. He would like now to live in the future and forget about the past. Quote, there is a lot we have subconsciously agreed that we don't want to know, he tells me. When he asks about my project, I am imprecise, lofty, saying I am writing about, in quotations, architecture and belonging and space. Okay, so let's just say she got 2 out of 3. We got the belonging, we got the space. Girl, we did not get to architecture. But anyway, that being said, the story does give a very good idea of the difficulty for African-American families to have a home, keep the home, and pass the home down through generations. And she does a good job of explaining that, while at the same time pretty much talking about all her family's business. I'm not even going to lie. I'm like, oh, girl out here telling everybody business in the family except her own. But, you know, okay, girl. I personally would have loved to hear what her family would have to say about this book. There were lots of people in the book club who thought the same, that they would like to know what her family thought about this book. Because you have to imagine, if somebody in your family, let's say a sibling or a cousin, says they want to write a memoir, we're not even talking fiction, a memoir about the family, and you're going to be included, how would you feel about it? And, you know, what stipulations would you put on that? So that's something to think about when embarking on memoirs written by the youngest members of the family. But yeah, so it's a very interesting look at New Orleans East, which is one part of New Orleans that was terribly devastated by Katrina. Although New Orleans East is a part of New Orleans that was built on marshy, swampy land, you know, the neighborhoods really shouldn't have been there from the start. But it's very interesting to read. It's heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching. Yeah. But the only thing that's really missing is, for me personally, there's an architectural connection is missed in this one, but I feel like it's missed for obvious reasons because New Orleans East is a neighborhood that was fairly modern and was like the houses were not built by the codes of culture and tradition that they are built in the CBD area or the Garden District area or the city area of New Orleans. So I feel like that's one of the reasons why there's a disconnect with culture that she wasn't able to bring to the book. And I wanted her to bring more of New Orleans to the book, the city, its culture, and stuff like that. And I felt like she brought it in little tiny doses. It just wasn't enough for me. I was expecting there to be much more of that included in the book than actually was. So for me, this just felt like around a 3.5. Would I recommend you read it? Yes, if you're interested in, like I said, that story of African American family trying to have a house, maintain a house, and pass a house on. This is a perfect example of why it's difficult. So yeah, it's something that should be read. So that's it. Those are the 3 books that I read in November, and I'm not mad at it. I think I had a good month, even though there are not very many, but who knows? Good thing is I finished my reading challenge of 50 books. That is done. So now everything that I'm reading in December is extra. So I'm really happy about that. I didn't try to push myself to read more, like I didn't put my goal at 70 or anything like that. I decided, no, I'm going to put it at 50 because for me, 50 is the minimum. So that's it. That's all I have for you today. Comment below and tell me what you read in November and what was one of your favorite books that you read in November. And if you have any comments on the ones that I've read, drop them below. I would love to talk to you about them. And I'll see you tomorrow with another Vlogmas video. Bye.